Hey guys, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer, functional aesthetics EC. So today I wanted to weigh in on one of Jeff's recent videos that he did. I think it was called To Lose Weight, Eat Carbs, right? So I think he brought this out because of the high popularity of a lot of low carbohydrate diets, particularly the keto diet, intermittent fasting, things like that. Now, intermittent fasting isn't particularly a low carb diet plan, but it does kind of go hand in hand with low carb diet plans simply because you go long periods of time without eating, which tends to lower your insulin and then you start burning fat more. But anyway, that's an aside. So the reason I wanted to do this video is it really struck a chord with me, particularly some things that he said in there about how he eats, because it's exactly the same way that I've done things for, I don't know, probably since about 2010, 2011, something like that. And it really does work and helps to, because I've always been very much against people going right to keto and doing a keto diet or something like that. There are beneficial benefits, metabolic benefits and stuff to the ketosis diet, which, science has recently found is the case. And it can be very effective for weight loss. But you generally don't need to go to that extreme. And as Jeff touched on in the video, he's like, carbohydrates are all around us. They're a very common nutrient. They're also, as he pointed out, one of the three nutrients that are like most, that probably taste the best in exclusion, right? So protein and fat don't really taste that great by themselves, right? I mean, to an extent, right? You might eat some, but you usually need something else to go with them. You think about French fries, you think about burgers and stuff like that. Well, if you take away the carbs, it doesn't taste as well. Whereas where you can eat carbohydrates, and carbohydrate-rich foods will generally taste good by themselves. So that's another thing of the sustainability long term, right? And that's one of the key markers of any diet, how effective it will be for you and how healthy it is long term is, can you sustain it? How many years have you been doing it? If you can do keto and stay on the keto diet and do it for years on end, then it's probably good. There are differences in people. I remember my cousin growing up and stuff, and she was a very big meat eater. We'd have Thanksgiving dinner, and she'd leave the bread, the stuffing and the potatoes and stuff like that for the most part. And she'd eat a lot of turkey, and usually the dark meat and the fatty meat of the turkey and stuff like that. And she was a really little gal too, and it was kind of funny because sometimes she'd eat more turkey than her brothers would. And interesting like that. So, but for most people find carbohydrates more palatable by themselves than the fat and the protein. Another thing that Jeff pointed out in his video is, he didn't point this out, but one of the things that I talk about in some of my writings and stuff like that and my videos is that one of the key determinants of a good diet is comes down to three different things: hunger, energy, and cravings, or HEC. So if you can keep those three balanced, you can generally stick on the diet, because that's generally how people fall off the diet. It's either they're too hungry to stay on the diet, their energy levels are in the gutter, or they're craving things all the time. Another thing, which might pertain to the keto diet, is how palatable is the food to you? Or do you get really bored with eating that thing day in and day out and stuff like that? Or do you actually enjoy the food you're eating? That can be another thing for some other people. I'm kind of a boring person. I never really had problems sticking to and eating a certain thing day in and day out, generally just because with training hard and stuff like that, you're hungry enough to eat those things and you don't really mind that. So the thing that he pointed out is that, if you're eating carbohydrates, the reason why they've gotten a bad rap is that if you eat a lot of carbohydrates by themselves, or you start your meals with carbs or sugar and stuff like that, comes back to the hormone thing. So hormones, your hunger hormones, particularly like insulin, is going to get spiked a lot more from eating carbohydrates and sugar than from eating fat or protein. So it's going to make it a lot harder to not overeat on the carbohydrates and not overeat at the meal in general. Now, the way around eating too many carbohydrates is, again, coming down to the hormones and the order in which you eat your foods. You don't have to count the calories and things like that. If you control the hormones, the macronutrients, or macronutrients, who all know is carbohydrates, fat, and protein that make up a meal, will tend to fall where they should be. And let me preface this. So in Jeff's video, he talks about that he's a fan of splitting your plate into thirds. It makes a lot of sense, right? You have 3 different primary macronutrients: the carbohydrates, protein, and the fat, and so you just kind of split it up like that, right? Well, he talks about having, a third of your plate, being the protein portion, and then having, like half at least of your plate being fibrous carbohydrates, so like vegetables, and then whatever's left over, be it starchy vegetables, and then moderate amounts of fat, maybe a little olive oil or something like that, or whatever you use to cook up your meat, being for the fat portion, and you can go like that. So when I first got into the bodybuilding stuff like that, I was all big into the macronutrients, right? I knew how many calories I was supposed to eat, and I was real big on eating frequent little meals and stuff. The problem is that you never really knew like exactly how many calories you were burning off in a day and things like that. And so it was really hard to make sure you're eating enough, not too little, all these things. And there's just a lot of a headache, especially working a full-time job as most adult people do, or a couple of things, and having kids and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier when, as Jeff said in the video, you start by eating your protein first. And I actually learned this by watching one of my roommates. Every time he would eat, he generally eat his protein portion first. And me coming from, actually, I had some digestive issues, and so I decided to try a vegetarian diet. And so I was eating a lot of beans and rice and starches and stuff like that, peanut butter sandwiches and whatnot. And so I was used to having a lot more carbohydrates in my diet. And so by eating protein, or like the meat first, like eggs or, chicken or tuna or whatever it was that I was eating that day for my protein, I found there's a drastic decrease in my hunger, and it blunted my hunger a lot faster, and it also made the way that the food went through my system work a lot better. So I digested my food better, I felt more mentally alert, I didn't crash as easy and things like that. So as he says in the video, start with eating the protein first, and I would add to that, start with your protein and fat portion of your meal first, then move around to your fibrous carbohydrates, such as vegetables, and then he said move on to the carbohydrates. Now, I would add that, eat when you're hungry, right? If you are hungry and you've eaten all the carbs, protein, the fat, the vegetables and stuff, and you're still hungry for the starchy carbohydrates and the fruit and things like that afterwards, or the sweets afterwards, then go ahead and eat those things, but only eat, a serving size, right? Keep everything in balance. And then if you're still hungry, start over again from the beginning. Eat the protein, the fat, another serving of protein and fat, another serving of your vegetables, and then moving back to the starchy carbohydrates and the sugar, right? So then in between meals, you want to be eating or drinking a lot of water. And, in the past, a lot of times people would drink water because they're like, well, drink more water because then it'll make you feel more full and you'll eat less food. Well, that's really not a really good reason to be drinking more water. There's plenty of way more important reasons why you should drink more water than just to keep yourself full. Yes, it will keep you full for about 20 minutes until that water goes through you and stuff, and you'll be peeing and stuff like that. The more important reason is that water actually helps to make your metabolic processes more efficient. You absorb your nutrients better. When you're eating healthy food, which has more fiber, that fiber absorbs the water and helps to bulk up your stools and makes your digestion run more properly. When your digestion is running more efficiently, it means you're absorbing your nutrients better and you're going to be healthier in that regard. So those are the reasons you should do that, because especially if you're eating more protein and things like that, you're not going to hold on to as much water, so you should be drinking more water to make sure that you are indeed actually hungry and not just thirsty. So maybe 20 minutes before you're going to eat your meal, drink a large glass of water. You know, if you're still, sometimes that'll wake you up and you'll be like, whoa, I'm thirsty, and you keep on drinking water. So make sure you're actually hungry and not thirsty before you actually eat your food. There's nothing wrong with eating food, but make sure that you get that water in there and prioritize that. Okay, and then the last thing I want to touch on in this video is the macronutrient breakdown. So Jeff advises the cutting the plate into thirds and stuff like that, or eating kind of like a 30-30 sort of approach of sorts for your meal. But even as he states in there that, you know, certain people, everybody's different, certain people will do better on different macronutrient ratios. So this is where I actually like the idea of metabolic typing. I think it was Weston A. Price was the first one who actually came up with this idea of metabolic typing. It was kind of based on the diets of different indigenous peoples from all over the world, you know, whether the Antarctic or the Amazon and anywhere in between, and how their genetics and where their ancestry was from determined how their digestive system worked and things like that, and allowed them to adapt to different things. So there is some debate as to the validity of this stuff, but I just go from anecdotal evidence from myself, is that yes, there were certain points in my life where being very low on the carbohydrate end of things was very beneficial for me, after going very high on the carbs when I was doing the vegetarian, as I mentioned before, and then kind of bringing yourself back to balance. The key thing that I think is most important with the metabolic typing thing is that it kind of splits you into 3 different primary food groups, you know, or metabolic types. So you have a carb type, which would be more towards that vegetarian end of things, so a little bit lower in fat, maybe 10% total of your calories coming from fat. Maybe, you know, 20% from protein, and the rest are coming from carbohydrates. Then you'd have that protein type, which would be, you know, maybe 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 30% fat. So a little bit higher in the fat and protein end of things. And then you have a mixed type, which is somewhere in between there. So, but the most important thing I was building up to here is that they also have a way for you to have there's different symptoms of having too many carbohydrates, both in the short term and in the long term, and then symptoms of having too much protein and too much fat, both short term and long term, and then the steps that you can do to adjust your diet to find that balance where you're running optimally, or you're in your power zone, as Paul Chek talks about. And that's actually where I first heard about the metabolic typing diet, was in his book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I definitely recommend that you check it out. It's a great source, not only for diet advice and nutrition and things like that, but also just general how to feel better. So, you know, mobility exercises, energy building exercises, you know, building balance in your body and things like that. So, great book. So I've been rambling on enough about all of this. I want to say before closing, if you are living in the Eau Claire area and you are having troubles, you know, wading through all the nutrition and diet minutia and stuff like that, maybe you've tried some diets in the past and they didn't work so well for you, I'd definitely encourage you to try this out. If you're having some trouble figuring out all the little nuance of that, you can schedule a complimentary consultation with me by reaching out to me at my email address, which is aceproaaron@gmail.com. Again, that's aceproaaron@gmail.com. And I would be happy to sit down with you for half an hour to discuss, you know, what your history is and some of the struggles that you've had, and see if we might be a good fit to work together to help you finally achieve your fitness goals once and for all. So, guys, if you liked the information in this video, be sure to hit that like button below. If you think a friend or a loved one might benefit from this information, share the video with them. And if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Functional Aesthetics EC, and we'll see you all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks, guys, for watching. See you next time.